Patient. There's an extraordinary scene at the bar Polpo in which Gabs, who has insight into all things past, present, and future, is talking to her father about the Chilesian susceptibility to a kind of narrative pareidolia, a tendency to perceive stories in random glyphs and letters, a motif found throughout Chilesian folklore, where there's such an inculcated expectation for story, for that feeling of affinity with recognizable characters, that even the most aggressive Verfremdungseffekt can't fully quash it. Oh, this guy's a nut. In blue crayon on her placemat, Gabby draws a lowercase I in the lower left-hand corner and a lowercase I in the upper right-hand corner. Now what have we here, she asks, pointing to the I in the lower corner. Let's say a stick figure torso and head, and up there, she points to the upper corner. A balloon on a string, yes? 2 identical lowercase letters on one single page. And that's it. You've already got an entire screenplay. A screenplay about, I don't know, some curious little boy who follows his errant balloon around Brussels or something. That's not bad, right? A curious little boy follows his errant balloon around Brussels. You have a very gentle, charming, fey little film here. The ethereal waif with dirty feet, but she winks with a quick self-deprecating toss of the head. And I'm just spitballing here, but what if you add some psychopathology to it? Perhaps the boy is out of his mind. Better yet, perhaps the balloon is out of its mind. And now you got something you might be able to sell to Don't Let This Robot Suck Your Dick Productions for $39,072. And at the mere mention of this figure, the WGA minimum covered earnings that would make them, as Chilesian citizens, eligible for health insurance benefits. The other fathers and daughters stopped their recitations in order to listen to Gabby. Their rapt silence only interrupted by what? A burst of machine gun fire outside? A fusillade of eyeballs? You decide. Then making circles in the air with her vape, little circles next to her head to indicate that the wheels are turning in there. Or a little Palestinian girl who's lost her father to an Israeli sniper's bullet and a Gazan incendiary balloon. And then a long pause and a deep gaze into the distance. 2 orphaned eyes who meet one night in the white void of the page, in the blinding incandescence of the Kramunka-Chunkian night. Of course, Gabby is reading all this from one of the spoken word karaoke screens. But it's the way she reads it, the guileless spontaneity of her gestures, that quick self-deprecating toss of the head when she says, I'm just spitballing here, but perhaps the boy is out of his mind. Better yet, perhaps the balloon is out of its mind. It's just something I'll never forget. Like Joseph Cornell's film Rose Hobart, for which he cut and re-edited the 1931 Universal film East of Borneo, so that it included only those scenes featuring the actress Rose Hobart, Don't Let This Robot Suck Your Dick Productions' remake of Escape at Dannemora was cut and re-edited so that it includes only scenes with Patricia Arquette, with the critically important exception of the scene in which the inmate Richard Matt, Benicio del Toro, teaches his fellow inmate David Sweat, Paul Dano, the rudiments of easel painting. The singular inclusion of this scene is of overarching significance, and it is deftly situated within the movie as a precious gemstone might be set within a piece of jewelry. In the scene, Matt, an accomplished prison artist, tells Sweat that he needs to master the fundamentals first, then if you want to go disco, go disco. This concept has become a, if not the, central tenet of the Chilesian mafia faction ethos. Idiomatically, go disco can also mean knock yourself out or you do you, which to a CMF street soldier is, of course, an unmistakable exhortation to kill and enucleate. And to a Kermunkachunkian mystic, it means nothing more and nothing less than the dance of death itself. When a warlord, divine hermit, emerges from a men's room, any men's room, he is always said to be ready to dance, to go disco. And in some variants of the folk tale, the convulsions of his danse macabre sweep the father out of the bar polpo, where he will suicidally traverse the piazza to his foreordained self-immolation. Late in Last Orgy of the Divine Hermit, a UFO, Ezekiel's chariot, appears when the actor playing the father calls for an Uber. On board, there's a nuptial banquet in progress, an image of triumph and procreation that serves as epilogue to innumerable folktales. 3 folkloric motifs are combined here: birth, nuptials as an act of procreation; death as travel or transmigration to other dimensions; and triumphant merriment as represented by feasting. It voyages to a planet in the triple star Alpha Centauri solar system that will take centuries, if not thousands of years, to reach. In its backup camera, we can see that silly hand-drawn map of Chilesia getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Read this book and you will see for yourself how these protagonists, these folkloric heroes, the divine hermit, the father, etc., die in the grand Chilesian tradition. And the act of reading, die from reading. How they, like all readers, are transpierced by signifiers. How they, like Toshiro Mifune in Throne of Blood, stagger to their feet and pirouette to their deaths. The patient stops. Patient, I'm too young to die. The optometrist cracks up. They fist bump. Patient. Last Orgy of the Divine Hermit opens with a medley of epigrammatical, big character posters mounted on the periphery of the piazza, and concludes with a heart-shattering letter written in ink mixed from soot and urine from one of Chilesia's most revered poets to his daughter on the eve of his execution. A love letter, an epistolary area, adumbrated by the Snellen chart in the optometrist's office. A final ivresse du discourse, which is like a telegraph sending messages to itself. And a final crescendo of pleasure, and yet, like a man listlessly playing solitaire in his cell. One last shuffling of tiles, one last pure mutation of letters. Like the gamma-ray burst that precipitated the mole storms on the Chilesian steppe, the poet's letter to his daughter is the final breath of a dying star and the birth of a stellar mass black hole. Love, death, unio mystica. It is, in the last resort, i.e. the last orgy, immaterial whether the book is more about this particular drunken father for whom the condemned poet is an obvious avatar, and his daughter, or perhaps ultimately a book that's just about Gabby, than it is about the Chilesian mafia faction. It is the undulatory movement between these contradictory narratives, these contradictory folk tales, that produces its vibration, its frequency, its music, if you will. A ladle bouncing along the street, eyeballs hitting a window, arpeggios of dental floss on a homemade lute. Whether its repetitions and non sequiturs turn you off or turn you on is one issue, but the ineffable, and ultimately quixotic love between this father and this daughter will pierce your heart. It will literally stab you in the chest multiple times. And in the end, as the folktale seems to suggest, the father's death, a transfiguring dematerialization, restores him to the oceanic realm of text as decorative pattern. A shimmering moire field, a chora, an ancient step of pre-discursive keystrokes. It ends where we all began, in this foam, the sea spume. Optometrist, that's marvelous. And the old optometrist, that Spinozist grinder of lenses, that impresario of the world's greatest encrypted text, the Snellen chart, draws his final breath, pirouettes, and expires. The patient puts a drop of artificial tears in one eye and a drop in the other. We hear, it's a source apparently her wireless earbuds, Pop Smoke's Dior from the soundtrack of Meet Me in Kermunkachunk. And then, in the distance, prolonged screams of the most exquisite agony. Frankie Schatz, Sfogliatella, 3-time Jeopardy champion and adjunct professor of drone warfare and online dating at Texas State Tech College in Waco. Epilogue. The epilogue, which due to the fallen state of the world follows immediately upon the introduction, is read through the artificial tears of the patient. The bar pulpo, father, daughter, night. We hear in the distance prolonged screams of the most exquisite agony. Gabby and the father are seated across from each other in a booth. Immediately we notice the native centerpiece, a metal basket of fluorescent yellow marzipan golf balls. And since the fou mathematiques, i.e. nothing seems to quite add up here, Gabby in a stage whisper, "Ready?" The father nods like Zeus, if only in his own mind, setting it off. It is perhaps like that moment at a Grand Prix in some exotic city when the red starting lights are extinguished and it all begins, the difference, the repetition, the delirious vortex to that last chican orgy. On June 26, 2035, Kermunkachunk, the capital of Chilezia, was engulfed in chaos. The Chilesian mafia faction, a fanatical offshoot of the Chilesian Children's Theater, had assumed control of the city center and was carrying out mass executions. Enemies, real and especially imagined, were dragged out of their office buildings and gutted in the street. As a waiter approaches from across the room, he's shot in the abdomen. We can't tell if the round's been fired from within the bar or from out on the piazza. Like the plucky protagonist of a Peter Berg movie, and in the first of a series of petite mal dances of death that prefigure the father's culminating grand mal dance of death, he stumbles to the booth holding in his entrails with his hand. He coughs up a spray of blood before a convulsive pirouette sends him collapsing to the checkerboard tile floor. Dead, and then, without losing a beat, he pops right back up. Waiter. Is this your first time at the bar, Polpo? Gabby. It is. Waiter. Well, first of all, welcome. He curtsies. Gabby and the father smile. Waiter. Basically, the idea is that you design or customize your own piazza. You get 4 big character posters, one for the north side, one for the south side, one for the east, and one for the west. The big character posters function as gosh, all of a sudden I can't think of the word. Father, reading phlegmatically from one of the spoken word karaoke screens. Epigraphs? Waiter, exactly, yes, epigraphs. So he hands each of them a beautiful 4-color gatefold brochure that includes a menu of options for big character posters, i.e. epigraphs. You're going to choose 4 big character posters from the menu of options. Gabby, do you have any recommendations? Waiter, well, most people pick the Holderlin. It speaks very poetically to the noble intimacy of the father-daughter bond. Beyond that, whatever appeals to you. The waiter exits. Gabby and the father open their brochures and peruse the menu of options for the big character posters, i.e. epigraphs, that will appear on each side of the piazza. Number 1. Not without wings may one reach out for that which is nearest. Friedrich Holderlin, Der Ister. 2. Pooping while menstruating is one of the most psychedelic experiences a person can have. Mira Gonzalez. 3. The content of any medium is always another medium. Marshall McLuhan. 4. Like a child on a scooter, fill in the blank, seems to veer inexorably toward you, no matter how deliberately you try to avoid it. From Donald Duck's trippy account of the Scopes monkey trial. Number 5. That Monday, belying predictions of torrential rain on all the weather apps, there was bright sunshine and a cloudless blue sky. I have an idea, said the pigeon to several little sparrows eating bread crusts beneath a park bench that afternoon. What if we... Yes, said one of the sparrows, knowing the pigeon always thought things through very, very carefully. What if we called his first orgasm when he separated both his shoulders and shit in his pants his first orgy? Mark Leyner, First Orgy of the Divine Hermit. For me, the most dangerous people are... Number 6. For me, the most dangerous people are the guys who are sitting behind a kiosk and just smoking and eating noodles. Timo Tejajanto, director of The Night Comes for Us. Number 7. If it's me and you're granny on bongos, it's the fall. Marquis Smith. Number 8. It is no nation we inhabit, but a language. Make no mistake, our native tongue is our true fatherland. Emile Cioran, used as an epigraph to the video game Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Number 9. No, seriously, we used to call it the pizza from hell. The place was located in this creepy basement corridor, like in some dilapidated institution. Like an abandoned public school or factory or something. We never saw an oven or a kitchen. Never knew exactly where the pizza was made. We'd just wait in this dark, damp hallway, which smelled like janitorial supplies, like ammonia and pine disinfectant, and that mint-absorbent sawdust, and that cheap brown toilet paper. Remember that smell? Until this guy appeared. Long, greasy hair, broken teeth, this oozing gash across his forehead, sores all over his face. He'd always be in this incredible rage, raving incoherently, and he'd hand you your slice. And we never had the slightest idea where it came from. But it was the best slice of pizza he ever had. Hands down, best slice ever. Leyner, Intermediate Orgy of the Divine Hermit. Number 10. As a starting point for this discussion, we may take the fact that it appears as if in the products of the unconscious, spontaneous ideas, fantasies, and symptoms, the concepts feces, parentheses, money, comma, gift, into parentheses, baby, and penis are all distinguished from one another and are easily interchangeable. Sigmund Freud, on transformations of instinct as exemplified in anal erotism. Number 11. The fate of an insect which struggles between life and death somewhere in a nook sheltered from humanity is as important as the fate and the future of the revolution. Rosa Luxemburg. Number 12. My dead puggle, who was my guru and my butch teacher, came to me in a dream last night and gave me 3 names. Fizzy, Physiognomy, Knob Brainer, and Ovalve. He commanded me to go to Kermunkachunk with Gabby and write an ethnography of the Chilesian mafia faction. Leyner, Penultimate Orgy of the Divine Hermit.